Welcome to Get Paid for Your Pad, the definitive show on Airbnb hosting, featuring the best advice on how to maximize profits from your Airbnb listing, as well as real-life experiences from Airbnb hosts all over the world. Welcome. We are your hosts, Josefa Kapadia and Jasper Rivers.
Get paid for your pad. 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 Get paid for your pad.
Welcome everybody, another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad, the podcast about Airbnb hosting. And today I'm very excited to have a friend and entrepreneur, traveler, and just a really cool person in general. His name is Danny Flood. Welcome to the show.
Hey Jasper, great to be here. Thank you so much.
So Danny, you're doing a lot of cool things. You run your own podcast. You have a website. I know you've done all sorts of businesses in the past. Do you want to give our listeners a background of yourself?
Yeah, sure. Several years ago, I graduated from the Art Institute with an advertising degree. And after I graduated college, I just felt like I kind of had a quarter-life crisis. And the only jobs that were out there, this was in the height of the recession, were $9 an hour crappy jobs. And I was like, is this what I have to look at for the rest of my, is this what I have to face for the rest of my 30, 40 years from now? Or 30 or 40 years. And I just got really depressed. So I decided that I was going to strike out on my own, come what may. And I've been doing that ever since.
Awesome, man. Sounds great. And I know you've traveled a lot. We've talked about this. Let's go into traveling. What are some of the ways that you've used to find different accommodations during your travels?
Sure. So I guess going back a little bit, I didn't talk about my travel too much, but I've been traveling the last 4 years to over 30 countries now. And when I started out, I was a little bit scared. I never really traveled too much. So I started out with a trip to Mexico. And I wanted to go down there for 2 months to get out of my comfort zone, just as an experiment. I grew up in southern San Diego, California, so Mexico is the obvious frontier for me. And I spent 2 months down there, and all I did was I traded this lady. I said, I'll help you design a website. In exchange, I want to stay for 2 months for free. And she agreed to that. And I've actually done a lot of those trades all around the world, a lot of barter. And if you are familiar with a lot of travel bloggers, a lot of them do these types of barters and these trades. Anyway, so long story short, that was my first time living abroad, and everything worked out great. And after that, I went to South America for 4 months. I was backpacking around there. I've spent over a year in Asia, and especially Southeast Asia. And that was just one barter I've done. And ever since then, I've kind of, what's great about travel is being in these new environments. It really facilitates the development of new skills that you never would think of developing if you just stayed back home.
Absolutely.
So I can
totally relate to that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that when you started out traveling, you started with bartering accommodation for skills, which is interesting because we're going to get into Airbnb and the sharing economy in general. So it sounds like the way you started was already very very much all about sharing and exchanging skills and assets, which is really what the sharing economy is about.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think I would have ever gotten into the sharing economy as much as I have if I hadn't traveled. Because Airbnb is obviously the obvious leader in the sharing economy marketplace, but there's so many other resources. And part of what it was for me was, since I started out as an entrepreneur, I never had a stable paycheck to fall back on. So I was always paranoid that I could be in debt, or my bank account balance would run out in the next month or 2 months. And so it forced me to develop these kinds of skills. And I started out, when I started traveling, I was pretty much broke. I did grow my advertising business to over 60,000 a year while working only 10 hours a week, and I did that all through systems. And I was able to travel to all these countries and do it that way. But then when I quit that business, I didn't have that income anymore, and I was still wanted to travel. And then so I started to get creative again, and I learned all these different sharing economy resources that are out there, and I've been using them ever since.
What are some of the?
Do you want to talk?
Yeah, what are some of the platforms that you've been using the most during your travels?
Well, I'm glad you asked because I actually took a list of resources before this interview. I do use Couchsurfing a lot, and not for the reasons that you might think. It's actually a great networking tool, and I actually talk about this. If you visit my blog, Open World Magazine, openworldmag.com.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lifestyle design resource, and I use websites like Couchsurfing they have these forums in every city around the world, and often I'll go on there and I'll tell people that I'm coming, and I'll have locals that'll meet me when I arrive, sometimes at the airport, and they show me around, and I get to do all these cool things with these locals, and I never have to pay a dime. While other people are taking tours and they don't get any interaction with the real culture of the place they're visiting, I get to have firsthand experience with people who live there, and it's enriched my life in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely, and this is one of the reasons why I like Airbnb very much, and why I think Airbnb has gotten very popular is because people are looking for that local experience. Now, it's so different when you're staying in a hotel and you don't know anyone versus you're staying with a person who is a local and who will provide you with information and recommendations, or will even hang out with you during your stay. It's just a completely different experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And then it's basically, you have two sides to the coin. You have the person who is sharing the resources. In your case, you have the apartment, and you're renting the apartment through Airbnb. And then you also have the person who wants access to the resources. Mm-hmm. And both the accessor and the provider are both empowered in ways that they would not otherwise be without this model in place. And it's not just limited to Airbnb. It's everything. I mean, if I ask people, if I tell people about Couchsurfing, and they'll say, "Why would you host someone on your couch for free, and not charge anything? Like, people really do that?" And I said, "Yeah, and it's actually really rewarding for the host as well as the surfer."
Yeah, absolutely. It's I can imagine. I haven't used Couchsurfing as much myself, but I can imagine you'll just build up this huge database of people that you know all around the world, and so it'll probably enable you as a Couchsurfing host to stay at other people's places for free.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just the financial aspect of it. It's also the exchange that you just mentioned. Some of the best friends that I've made all around the world. I mean, I've traveled over 30 countries, but in the beginning I wasn't using these sharing economy platforms. I kind of had to figure everything out myself. And, the old way I was using of networking was very inefficient. And so I've been very fortunate. The last 6 months or 7 months I've been traveling around Southeast Asia, and I have made so many friendships just in every country around here, in Taiwan, Malaysia, Philippines, just really good friends. And I know I can go back there anytime and be welcome. And it's almost like this huge interconnected family of people from different countries, and it's just fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you have actually hosted people using Couchsurfing?
Yes, I have done both Couchsurfing and Airbnb. Not to the extent that I want to, because I've always been on the move, and I had never stayed in one place for so long. Mm-hmm. But my new strategy is I want to kind of use both interchangeably. Like, I want to be able to host people on my couch, but then also rent out my entire apartment. So since I have no plans to return anytime soon, I want to travel forever. Mm-hmm. one of my plans is to just rent a place in each city that I visit, and then kind of what I've been doing lately is I'll put it up on Airbnb, and then if someone books it for 4 days or 5 days, then I'll kind of use that as a hub, and then I'll go travel around while the place is booked, and that'll kind of pay for those little trips that I make around different countries.
That's a really smart way of doing it, because when you're traveling, it's more difficult to use Airbnb. When you think about Airbnb hosting, you think about people who own a house or who are renting a house long term. But even if you're traveling and you're renting a place for 1 month, you can put it up on Airbnb and rent it out for a weekend or 4 or 5 days, and use that money to visit some places nearby. That's I've never thought about that. That's a really interesting point.
Yeah, I guess it just goes back to my entrepreneurial mindset, just because of never having a stable paycheck and always wanting to save resources whenever I can. So
Right.
I don't like the idea of renting a place and being stuck there.
Mm-hmm.
But then on the other hand, I like having the place when I need it. But then if I want to take a week to go somewhere else in the country, it's nice to know that I can just have someone stay at my apartment, and that pays for my trip, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. And how many people have you hosted so far on Airbnb?
So far, only 3. But again, that's just because I've been on the move so much. But I'm definitely looking to increase that number. One weakness of this model is that obviously you don't have the long-term approach. You don't take a long-term approach, so you don't have the reviews built up and that. But I do find that you still get inquiries even if it's a new Airbnb listing.
So you found it easy to sort of get started with Airbnb, or did you have any concerns?
Well, I mean, you always have concerns anytime you do something new. My main concerns were mostly related to landlords. And any condos or apartments that are professionally managed that have security guards and stuff, I'm a little bit worried that they're going to try to shut my operation down.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
So
did you let your landlord know when you rented it out?
Well, I checked out the lease agreement, and basically it said that if anyone stays for more than 10 nights, that I have to pay them. I have to pay them extra if I have any guests stay for more than 10 nights. Mm-hmm. So anything under that is fair game.
Oh, cool.
And so fortunately, I haven't had anyone stay for longer than 10 nights.
Yeah, I mean, and that's actually pretty rare as far as my experience goes. I think the average duration of an Airbnb stay is something like 3 or 4 nights. So I think that stays of over 10 nights are actually pretty rare.
Yeah, I find that to be pretty typical, about 3 or 4 nights. Most of the inquiries that I get. But what was really great, I was following your book, and I was following the model that you set, and the way that you've systemized the Airbnb process. I find it really works really well, and the execution was very streamlined. And I actually saw a lot of similarities in the process that you've developed with Airbnb and the systems and processes that I developed in my own business, which is completely unrelated, but it's an advertising business, that I systemized it, and I was able to get it all automated, kind of like what you did. Mm-hmm. So I was working only about 10 hours a week, whether I was in South America or Thailand or Eastern Europe, for instance.
And how did you automate that business? Like, what were the different aspects?
Well, I guess every good system starts with a need, and identifying the greatest need in any operation or business. And in this particular business, in my business, digital advertising, the biggest and most time-consuming activity that I spent was prospecting for new leads. And what I realized, I listened to a podcast by my friend, maybe not a podcast, but a webinar. My friend Kevin Wilk. Have you heard of Kevin Wilk?
Nope, I haven't.
He's an online marketer, and basically what he said is that if you follow this consulting model, you only need 5 or 6 clients to make a full-time income. And when I realized that, it was a big aha, because I realized that I was trying to chase too many unqualified leads. And so I systemized the communication aspect with my clients, and I learned to fully monetize those clients by increasing the lifetime value and getting them to become lifetime customers. Mm-hmm. And the way I did that was I identified these milestones, like you did, pre-booking, booking, post-booking. So when I would have a consultation with them or when they would sign a contract, these are milestones. And then a certain event would happen at these milestones where I would send them some form of communication or even a gift. So I would always send gifts, on birthdays. When a project was complete, I would send them a certificate letter and a plaque. Things like this that no other companies in my industry were doing. But it created these enthusiastic customers who stuck around and hired me for life. Mm-hmm. And they paid me the fees I wanted, and they sent me other business.
Yeah, and I think the common denominator here is building a personal relationship. And this is something that's really important as an Airbnb host, because you want to build a bit of a relationship before your guest even arrives at your apartment. Because in the end, people want to work with people that they like. And in order to make people like you, well, obviously you have to be, you have to be nice, but you have to put in the effort to build that little relationship. So, just to give you an example, I actually traveled to Paris a while ago, and I booked an Airbnb place, and the host didn't really communicate with me. So I got on the train in Amsterdam, and I still hadn't heard from the host how she was going to meet me and how I was going to get access to the house. So, I didn't feel very comfortable going to Paris. I thought, well, if this person is not going to show up, then I'm going to have to book a hotel, and it's not something that you look forward to. So what the host didn't do well was she didn't communicate with me, and I didn't feel like I knew her, and that way I didn't really trust her. And I think trust is really important in business as well as in Airbnb. If you build a personal relationship with somebody and that person trusts you, then that person will want to do business with you, whether it's in your advertising business or Airbnb. It's the same thing.
Yes, it's all about relationships, and the beauty of it all is that you can systemize it, just like you did with Airbnb when you host, and you can apply it to different platforms and different business models. Mm-hmm. So where I actually learned this stuff was from Dan Kennedy. Dan Kennedy is a marketing author who wrote No BS Direct Marketing, and what he says is that you have to kind of keep your herd strong, and you have to keep a strong fence around them. And what he means is that they need to be touched by some form of communication, and he recommends at least one touch of communication per week. Mm-hmm. And so I realized, that's and that's so if you can take that communication and you can systemize this and you can apply it to Airbnb, this customer experience, you can apply this to any platform, and it's not just Airbnb, but it can be any type of business. And if you're able to systemize it, that's the ultimate form of leverage, because mm-hmm. everything comes down to relationships. Right,
and the way that I approach my Airbnb business, as I've written in the book, it's something that you can apply to different sharing economy platforms. And I know we talked. Me and Danny, we talk a lot, and we talked about different platforms in the sharing economy. And I thought it'd be interesting to touch on that, because for people who are interested in Airbnb hosting, they're probably also interested in other types of sharing economy platforms, but a lot of people might not be aware of what's out there. So let's quickly talk about that. And I know you mentioned earlier to me a platform for sharing your car. Is that correct?
Yeah, I actually have a whole list of resources that I can touch on, including sharing your car. I've written about all of these in my book. I have a forthcoming book coming out within the next couple of months. And can I title of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the title is called Buy Your Own Island. And the idea is how you're able to make your biggest dream goals a reality in the here and now. And I take the idea of dream goals from the 4-hour work week, but I actually show you how. And I have a lot of sharing economy resources listed in the book. And I'm really excited about this topic, because it really empowers you in ways that you've never been empowered in human history before, whether it's on your laptop or your phone. So the actual ride-sharing platform that I mentioned is called Get Around. And if you go on that website, let's say you want to drive a Tesla Roadster, you don't have to work hard for 20 years to save up, $70,000 or $80,000 to drive a Tesla, you can go on there and rent a Tesla for $25 an hour.
Wow, that's
You know,
awesome.
I actually, yeah, before this interview, I just double checked that, and I saw there's a Tesla available in San Francisco, but they also have other cars, and so if you have your own car that's just sitting around in the driveway, you can be renting it out for $150 a day. So that's one website is Get Around. You mentioned another one on your when I interviewed you for my podcast, which was I think Flight Car. Is that right?
Yeah, Flightcar is for people who want to rent out their car while they're away on a holiday, and you can basically, the way it works is you park it for free at the airport, and then if somebody wants to rent your car, then you even get paid for it. So instead of paying for parking, which tends to be quite expensive at the airport, you're actually making money.
Yeah, exactly. That's fantastic. And there's all these other resources that I can touch on. Like there's this one called Yerdle, which is an app. Have you heard of Yerdle?
Nope.
Jasper?
Mm.
It's basically, you can share everyday objects. So let's say that you live in a condominium, or not a condominium, but let's say you live in the suburbs, and maybe back in the old days, you had 20 homes and you had 20 different lawnmowers. So it's very inefficient. You have to everyone in the neighborhood has to buy a lawnmower to mow their grass. Well, now you can go on this app and you can share things with your neighbors.
Awesome.
So you can share lawnmowers, you can share surfboards, anything that you might need. You can share snowboarding equipment.
That's
and the way that
incredible.
works is,
How do you spell this app? Because I want to check this out.
it's Yerdle.
Yerdle. Okay.
Yeah, and I hope you go sign up. It's really cool, and that's just one example. But there's also others. So the way these sharing economy platforms work is the more you share, the more credits that you earn, and the more you can use those credits. So there's also things like sharing economy for language learning, like this website Italki. Have you heard of Italki,
No,
Jasper?
I have not.
It's basically like you can go on there. It's Italki, Italki.com. And it has all these language, it's like sharing languages. So you can have like a language exchange with someone in Russia, for example, if you want to learn Russian, and you connect on Skype. And you can charge for these lessons, or you can also earn credits and use those credits to learn other languages. So if you speak another language, you can go on websites like these and earn extra money. You can also earn money, renting your car and Get Around. You can also... I've even heard of these unusual ones. Like there's this website called Clubs Anywhere. You can actually rent your golf clubs. So how many of you guys have golf clubs, sitting in the garage? You can be making money off of those.
Yeah, and it's incredible if you think about it. Like how many of our assets and things that we own are just sitting somewhere doing nothing. I mean, cars are an obvious one. I've never thought of like a lawnmower or like a golf club, but yeah, the golf club is probably sitting at your house like 99.9% of the time or something stupid.
You can be renting out those golf clubs for $50 a day.
It's incredible. It's incredible.
And I'm even looking on here. There's another one called The Quiver. So if you have a surfboard or a stand-up paddleboard, I've seen people renting those out for $120 a day.
Wow.
So it's a sharing economy platform for renting surfboards and water equipment.
And this is incredible because if you think about it, I'm using my house to sort of finance my travels, but you could, if you get really good at doing the Yerdle thing, and I'm sure it's all kind of similar the way these sharing platforms work. You can probably just buy a bunch of stuff that you need anyway, rent it out, and use that to travel or to do whatever you want to do. And it's just crazy. Like I think they call these people micropreneurs, like people who are basically just using their assets, knowledge, and skills to monetize them on different platforms. So, for example, you may own a house and you have a spare bedroom that you rent out on Airbnb, and then you use a service like Uber to drive a taxi for a couple hours a day, and then you may use Wiseend, which is another platform for tutors, to teach somebody math for a couple hours a day, and then you can use
Yeah.
Yordle to rent out like all the other things that you own. And basically, you're making a full-time income by just using your different assets and your different skills.
That's what lifestyle design is all about. And you hit the nail on the head. It's micropreneurship. I also like to call it location-independent entrepreneurship, because this location independence, I mean, this is the key that unlocks all of the doors. Whatever it is you want to do in your life, if you want to go live in France, or you want to take up painting, you had a hobby that you've stifled since childhood. The better you get at understanding this marketplace that exists online, and the better that you get, you understand it, the more empowered that you are as an individual. And I talk a lot about this in my book. It's what my book is all about. And you can do all this stuff. It doesn't really require a huge investment in capital, which is fantastic. I mean, if you have a phone or a laptop, you can participate in this whole, looking for the right word, bonanza that's going on here. So.
Yeah, and it's I just spoke to the founder of a website called peers.org, peers.org, and they are a community of people who like the sharing economy, and they've listed a lot of platforms on their homepage. I'm just looking at it now, and one of the things we haven't talked about yet is the meal sharing platforms that are becoming pretty popular. And I know that Airbnb is experimenting with this in San Francisco, where they allow Airbnb hosts to also use their house and their kitchen to provide meals to strangers. And this is another really cool way to make some extra money. If you're passionate about cooking, you have a kitchen, you have a dining table with 6 chairs. Why not make a profile and make some money and meet some people who are probably also passionate about food, and make some friends at the same time. It's just such a great idea.
It's fantastic, all the options that are out there. And again, the one common denominator is that these are all people. They're all real people. And what the sharing economy has done, what Airbnb and these other websites have done, is that they've given people an actual persona and identity online. Whereas in the old way of doing things, circa 1999, people were using anonymous screen names in chat rooms, and you never know what the hell is going on in there. But now you have a review system, and you're able to facilitate these things offline through online means.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just fascinating, and it's so empowering, like you said before. And I think a lot of people just don't realize all the opportunities that are out there right now, and a lot of people are a little apprehensive about it because it's a new thing, and a lot of these things involve either meeting strangers, having strangers stay at your house, or having a stranger drive your car. And often people have they have emotional bonds with the things they own, and they don't feel so comfortable sharing them with others. But I think that's something that's changing, And what are your thoughts on that?
It's definitely changing. I agree. It's definitely changing, and there's also a very large segment of the population who doesn't feel that way and who is willing to share. If you go on Craigslist, and this is an old website, an old example, but when I was traveling around the U.S. and Canada, I spent about 2 or 3 months just road tripping. And in the U.S., if you take a Greyhound, it's very expensive. So I was just using ride sharing, going from place to place. So I would drive from LA to San Francisco, and I would share a car with someone and pay them maybe like $25 to help out with the gas. And people are willing to share their car, on this trip with a stranger. And I did a lot of that, and I saved a lot of money. And I was able to travel for 2.5 months around U.S. and Canada for less than I spend on renting my apartment back home, just by sharing resources with people. And again, it all comes down to these relationships and how well you're able to build these relationships. You can build these relationships very, very quickly, and realizing that 99% of people are good. And if you're not sure, you can always do a background check on them. You can Google me, and you can find a background on me or Jasper here. or you can, look on our profiles, on our public profiles, and you can see what other people have said.
Right. Yeah, and this is, a lot of Airbnb hosts are apprehensive about hosting before they start, but the experience are almost exclusively positive. Of course, anything you do, there's always a risk that something goes wrong, or you meet some people with bad intentions. But that's just part of life. That's just ingrained into everything that we do. And I always think if you don't want to run any risk, then you should stay in your bed, and then you'll die. You'll die young as a result of a heart attack. So
Yeah.
Anything you do in life has some risks. But I've hardly heard any negative experiences with Airbnb, and I imagine like with a lot of these sharing platforms, the people who are enthusiastic about these platforms are generally just really good people who want to meet others and who want to have great experiences.
Yeah, I'll just put some perspective to what you just said. Using couch surfing has literally changed my life. Like, I could not believe the hospitality that I experienced at the hands of the first time I used couch surfing was in Vietnam, and just how many people were willing to just meet me and help me. I had my wallet stolen when I was in Hanoi, and I had so many people helping me out after that I met through like these couch surfing groups. And I was just blown away, and they were offering me things for free, like offering me free places to stay. And I was like, wow, this has restored my faith in humanity. And you have to look at it like, if I'm afraid of something, if you're afraid of something, is it subjective of you, or is it really objective of you? Because if you look at the media, you're going to hear all kinds of stories about other countries and, how they're dangerous and how there's so many people being beheaded and all these, horrible incidents happening around the globe. But have you actually traveled to those countries, and have you actually met the people who are living their day-to-day lives there? And it's the same thing with, if you have a fear of Airbnb, is your fear rational or is it irrational? And if it's abstract, if you haven't defined the fear, then I think you need to do a little probing and see, is my fear objective reality or not?
Yeah, and in general in life, you don't want to have fear prevent you from doing the things that make life so great. You want to be empowered, yes, and definitely don't want to not reach your full potential, and do the things that will empower you to sort of live your dream and accomplish what you want to accomplish. So yeah, I think that's just a general life lesson,
and so yeah. And I look at it, the way to beat fear is to chip away at it, I think. If your fear is large, you got to think of it like a tree. A tree is not cut down with one stroke. You have to keep hacking at it.
Yeah.
And the way that you can do that is you can take little baby steps. Like you said on my podcast, you said just try it. Just put yourself out there. And with myself, when I got out of my comfort zone, I just took a trip to Mexico for a couple of months, which didn't seem like a big deal, but back then it was a big deal for me. And I realized, if something went wrong, I could always drive back home. But for me, it was a big deal because I had to get out of my comfort zone. And what I always like to tell people is that just taking baby steps can lead to big breakthroughs.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And this reminds me of one story that we featured on our podcast a while ago. His name was Alexander, and he was so apprehensive about hosting that it took him 2 months or something to accept his first guest. He kept declining all the inquiries because there were people from countries that he didn't know, and he didn't feel comfortable. And finally, like a Dutch person, because Alexander is Dutch too, wanted to stay at his place, and then finally he felt comfortable to do it. And the interesting thing is now he accepts pretty much every single inquiry. It doesn't matter where people are from. He's totally lost all that fear, and that's a really good point that you make. Like start with a baby step. And for you, that was traveling to Mexico as opposed to the other side of the world. And for Alexander, that was hosting a person from his own country. And use that as a stepping stone to grow, basically.
Yeah, exactly, and it's all about your own growth in this game. If you want to really do well with this micropreneurship, you are the common denominator that's central to all of this. And sometimes you have to give up who you are in order to become who you want to be. And there's actually a story. There's a book called Market Wizards by, I think his name is Vic Sperendeo. I don't know, but when he tells a story about a stock market contest where the smartest people lost all of the money, and it's because they were so sure in their beliefs that they held on to their stocks even when they were obviously going to fail. But they thought they were so smart, and basically they all lost all their money. And basically the lesson that he says is that sometimes you have to change in order to adapt to reality.
Absolutely great statement.
And in Aikido, what they actually say is that to be the water and not the rock. So whenever you encounter an obstacle, water flows around it and rock breaks and it crumbles. So it basically, I guess what I'm getting at is that you have to be willing to adapt. And the more flexible that you are, the less rigid that you are in your own beliefs, the better you will do when it comes to Airbnb or micropreneurship or location-independent entrepreneurship, lifestyle design.
Awesome. I think that's a great topic to end this podcast episode with. Danny, thank you so much for joining. It was a great chat, and then we talked a lot about the sharing economy and the different ways that people can use their skills and assets to monetize, but also to meet other people. And I think this is a really interesting topic. I will make sure to list all the websites and the resources that you mentioned in the show notes, which can be found at www.getpaidforyourpad.com/podcast. Danny, I know you're a really interesting person, and you have some really inspiring stories and thoughts and products and resources. So I'd love for our listeners to know where they can find out more about you.
It's called Open World Magazine, and it's at openworldmag.com. And basically, it's a resource for knowledge and growth. We like to feature the most inspiring and empowering stories of individuals in order to empower the normal person to take charge of their life and do the things they've always wanted to do. So if you have a dream that you put on the back burner, we want to help inspire you and empower you with these tools in this digital age so that you can get to where you want to go. So that's openworldmag.com, and we also have a podcast on there. And I also have a forthcoming book. It will be, if you sign up for our mailing list at Open World Mag, you'll get information on that. And we have a whole bunch of free resources and links to other resources you can check out.
Awesome, man. Well, I recommend everybody check that out. I know I've seen your blog, and I know that there's a lot of good shit on there. So everybody go check it out. And of course, if you want to learn more about Airbnb hosting, go to www.getpaidforyourpad.com, and you will find several resources that are completely for free, including an audiobook, the first few chapters of our book that is also for sale on Amazon, which is called Get Paid for Your Pad. And of course, check back every Monday and Thursday for another episode of Get Paid for Your Pad. Thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.
Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad. Get paid for your pad.